Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel, and today we're doing another comparison, yay! This time with Prismacolor Ohuhu. Basically, I'm just trying to get all my comparisons done with my Ohuhu brush markers before I end up running out of ink in one of them. What? So let's first take a look at each marker. The Prismacolors are black and the Ohuhus are white, but both have round barrels and stoppers on their caps that keep them from rolling away. And with the Ohuhus, they have a gray band on one side indicating the brush nib, while the Prismas have a squiggle line indicating their brush nibs. And then on the other side, the Ohuhus have their chisel nib, but on the other side of the Prismas, they have, if I can get it open, a bullet nib, which is definitely different from usual markers, because usually when you have a brush nib, it comes with a chisel nib all the time, but Prisma mixes it up. So let's go ahead and take a look at the brush nibs on both. And the brush nibs are similar in length, but Prismas, just like Copic, seem to have a fuller nib, while the Ohuhus do tend to taper to a finer point. All right, let's go ahead and do some blending. So I have my blending comparison card here, and we're gonna take a look at how well each side blends. All right, so I think both blends are pretty comparable. I'm not sure what's going on here. It's like kind of a bit of a burnout kind of look on the Prismacolor side, but I really think Prismas blend beautifully. So let's go ahead and check out ink flow. I'm just gonna use this purple. As expected, it flows great. And then Prisma, and that one too. And they're both very vibrant. I love that. All right, let's move on to my color matches. So here we have my color matches, Ohuhu here on the left side, Prisma here on the right. And the colors aren't exact, but they are the closest that I could get. I have a limited count on both sets, to be honest. I have like 48 count on the Prismas as well as a 48 count on the Ohuhus. So I did my best with what I could. And they're pretty similar, obviously just slightly different tones on some. So what we're coloring in today is this girl. And this is my next planetary character, following in the same theme as the previous one. So take a guess in the comments below which planet you think this character is based off of. So we're definitely going with an unusual skin tone color. I love these the most. I decided to go with something off color because it's kind of limited on each side, the kind of skin tones I can get with the marker colors provided. So I figured I'd just go ahead and choose a green color. And I definitely feel it fits really well with the planet this character is. All right, done with the base color on both sides. There is a bit of a color difference, but it's not huge. So we're gonna go on with some shading. I really love the greens that come with the Ohuhu pack. And I really feel that I was able to get some really pretty tones on the Ohuhu side. So I'm really excited to see how the Prisma does. So after blending some with the Prisma, I do feel like the Prisma do blend much more easier. So that's a plus. It's just easier to get these hard lines to soften up really quickly, and it does it really seamlessly. But if you've seen my review of the Prismas, you'll know that I've always been super impressed with how well they blend, especially when moving from one color to the next when they're not at all similar. It's just one marker really is able to dilute the other color when mixing, and it's very, very interesting. I don't know what sort of ink they have in these markers, but it's quite strong in my opinion. The nibs on the Prismacolors are also much more flexible than the Ohuhus. They're pretty comparable to the Copics, but weirdly, when I really tested out how flexible the nibs were on the Prismas, the nib kind of popped, and it was kind of like freaky because I thought I'd broken the marker. And Prisma is affordable, but they're not super affordable. They're about $4 to $5 a marker, depending on where you get them. So when I thought I broke the marker, I kind of had a little freak out. I was like, no. but I didn't. It just made a pop to the side and then went back to the original state. So I honestly don't know what the reason was for that. But speaking about price of Prismas, they are not refillable in my opinion. I just feel that the Prismacolors cost just a bit too much to not be refillable. And I mean, thank goodness I don't have to buy an entire set just to get one marker, since they do have the individual markers for sale. But at the same time, like, is it still worth it? I don't know. I just have issues about the thought of just throwing plastic markers away, I say, as I continuously purchase more packs of Ohuhus. What? So, and that's just definitely like an issue that I have with Ohuhu as well. Like, I hate the fact that you have to buy an entire pack. Someone did mention that the fact that they're not refillable on the Ohuhus is why they're not so expensive, because eventually they get you to buy an entire pack more. So you're spending another $34.99 and then another $34.99 as you continuously run out of markers. But I will say, as far as refills go for the Ohuhus, the lovely Lindsay from the Frugal Crafter here on YouTube mentioned that the Shinhan Touch ink is great to use as refills for the Ohuhus because of the similarity in ink colors. So that is definitely an option for those who love Ohuhus and want them to be refillable. And so I went with a darker green here. It is like kind of her skin, but it's like she's wearing a sheer black top over herself. So I did the darker green to kind of show that. And I'm also going to do it here on the gloves that she's wearing. Definitely a bit of a color difference between these two colors. This is more on the bluish hue and this is more on the yellowish hue. But I still think they kind of get the idea across that she's wearing a sheer shirt underneath and sheer gloves. I will say though, I am nervous about Ohuhu's nibs if there does come a point where we get refillable ink, because then we can't exchange out the, well, I mean, we can exchange out the marker, but we kind of can't if your goal is to get refillable ink and stay with the same marker. And so I say that because the nibs are felt, and I do wonder if they'll just end up fraying at some point after continuous use. At the moment, I've had them for quite a bit, almost about maybe a month and a half, maybe 2 months now. And so I've been using them a lot. I've created about a good 6 illustrations, like full 8.5 by 11 illustrations, and I haven't experienced any fraying. But given that they're felt, it does make me wonder, you know, how much longer do I have before the nib does start fraying a bit? Because I think eventually all felt nibs fray. And I think that Copic is also one of the nibs that fray, as well as Prismacolor. So eventually I feel like nibs are going to have to be replaced at some point. And I'm not sure if the nibs on Ohuhu are replaceable. I don't know. It's not something I've actually looked into. And I mean, as far as Prismacolors go, I'm just gonna assume that they don't have nib replacements, because if they don't have ink refills, why would they have nib replacements? You know what I mean? It's a one purchase marker, so there's that. I do expect ink to run out soon in one of my markers on the Ohuhu side. I have a feeling one of my blues will. I use my blues a lot, so one thing I want to do is a video on the longevity of the ink inside, just to see like how many pages the ink can fill, because even though I've only made like 6 or 7 illustrations, I mean, technically that is a lot. That's a lot of ink I'm using there, especially when I used one of my blues to cover the entire background with. But I also use them for just doodling and sketching and things like that, so they've already gotten a fair good use out of them, which is definitely why I wanted to just do these comparisons, because if you notice, they're already sold out on Amazon. As of this video, they did say that they will be back in stock before August. But yeah, so I'm just preparing myself that they're gonna run out soonish. And I know some say that with the Ohuhus, they've had them for months or even years and they're still going. And that's surprising to me, but I guess it just depends on how much you use the markers and how much area your marker is covering with ink. So if you're making small illustrations, like, yeah, your markers are gonna last a lot longer than mine will, because usually I do full illustrations like this. And I also mixed up my caps. So one difference is the Ohuhus don't have the color names on the barrel, which at first I didn't think was a big deal, but I literally took off both caps to one marker and ended up putting both of those caps on another marker. So you pretty much can switch out a color name completely and misidentify it because there's no color identification on the barrel itself, just on the caps. So I guess it's important to have the color names on the barrels as well, just so that that doesn't happen. One thing I do like is if you purchase one of the big packs of Prismacolors where it comes in like a case of 48 or more, their case has the markers configured horizontally, which I feel is a really great idea. Not a lot of marker companies provide a storage case that allows you to have the markers stored horizontally. And they should, because when you store them vertically or upright for too long, you sometimes run the risk of the ink like leaking or worse, exploding on the other end. And I mean, it's a pretty easily solvable problem by just purchasing your own like wooden box that I've seen where you can store your markers, you know, away from the case that it comes in, but it's still pretty convenient of Prismacolor to do that. I'm in love with how her face is turning out, or turned out really, because I don't think there's anything else I can add to it. I'm in love. I'm glad I went with this freckling idea. All right, so now we're gonna do the background, and you all know how I feel about the background. And I had a few people suggest the fact that I just go in straight lines to get even coverage for a background when filling in like large areas. So that's what I'm doing here, because as you know, I always have issues with filling in large areas. It always ends up looking splotchy with any kind of marker that I use. So I'm trying this. I was also told to use the chisel nib, but with this, on Prismacolor, there is no chisel nib. So I'm just gonna have to work with the brush. All right, and then I was told to do horizontal lines, and so far so good. And so it's not bad, but I still get like this weird streaking where you can see like the vertical lines and the horizontal lines and whatever. I'm just gonna assume that all markers do it, and that's just that. And if you have a different way or technique, feel free to go ahead and post it in the comments below. I'd love to hear it. All right, let's do the Ohuhu side, pure black. I'm gonna do the chisel nib, see if I get a more even fill. Gosh, this is pitch black. Oh wow. Okay, now that is an even fill. But I wonder if the fact that it's a black ink marker that contributes to a really even fill. I mean, because black is black, you know what I mean? I don't know if that makes any sense, but yeah. And we're done. So I really love how this one turned out. And both Prisma and Ohuhu tend to be extremely vibrant, so I definitely don't feel like one or the other came out more vibrant. Obviously the tones are a little bit different, but I already talked about that, so. And as always, I never choose the winner, as I leave that part up to you. So who do you think won? Go ahead and put your thoughts in the comments. And if you guessed that the character was based off planet Jupiter, that's correct. Give yourself a pat on the back. So if you enjoyed this video, maybe comment, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Thanks guys, bye!